of biology.
A bit of biology.
I wish I had a little mini top hat.
Oh yeah, we should have a little tip of the hat.
So,
Yes.
for today in biology, obviously I try to be healthy. I don't try that hard, to be honest, but I do care about my heart. I want my heart health to be there.
Totally.
And I love music and I love to sing and teach music. So today's biology topic is where the two of these things cross over.
Cute.
It is the cardiovascular system and music. And we discussed at length the brain and music a few years ago on our biology episode. And I brought in all of that evidence talking about the memory and how it's like music is one of the last things we hold on to, which like still gives me chills when I think about it. I love it. And it's why music is so important and it's so fascinating. So like, obviously hope y'all remember that, but listen to it if you haven't. But now we are connecting it to the heart. So it's like on an emotional level, I think we can all say like music can calm us if we're frustrated. It can
pump us
help us
up.
process. We might want to like scream and belt in the car. It can make our workday go by faster. Whatever it is, like music can bring a smile, a memory. It can be relatable. Like all of the music is so important. It is all of the things in so many ways.
It's one of the oldest forms of art.
Correct. So, a new study now adds cardiovascular health to the list of music's already very long list of benefits. The new suggestion is that it can directly trigger physiological changes that modulate blood pressure, heart rate, and respiration. Which I was like, who?
Okay.
Because I was like, oh, we're talking about the heart. Like, we're just talking about love, right? And it's like, no,
it can
literally
actually change.
The pumping of your heart, like physical. We are like getting, that's why I said cardiovascular.
Yeah.
Like we are getting like beyond like heart. So Luciano Bernardi, a professor of medicine at the University of Pavia in Italy and lead author on the paper published in a journal called Circulation, very sciencey, said in a statement that music induces a continuous, dynamic, and to some extent predictable change in the cardiovascular system, and understanding the mechanisms of how swelling crescendos and deflating decrescendos affect our physiology could lead to potential new therapies for stroke and other conditions.
Wow.
Which is just like for a man like so well versed in like the world of cardiovascular health to say like we could be learning more about strokes and like helping to like fix a person who has had a stroke and like just even to learn more about it and how we can make changes that don't just have to be like, oh, we're going to give them the best quality of life that we can. Like we might be able to actually get them,
bring them back
on the path to like their normal, like physical abilities. Like that is crazy that this man is saying this regarding music because of the changes in the crescendos and decrescendos, it could affect our body. Like I just keep reading this over and over and I'm like, this can't be real. But Bernardi and his colleagues did an interesting study because they had previously found that changes in the cardiovascular and respiratory systems mirrored musical tempo. And that was a study from years ago that came out, but they wanted to expand on this and extend this knowledge to the body's response to changing rhythms. So they enlisted 24 volunteers, half experienced singers and the remainder with no musical training, which I would have like loved to sit in on this study. And while participants listened to 5 random selections of Beethoven, Bach, and Puccini, and maybe a couple other classical artists, they also listened to 2-minute segments of silence, and then monitors recorded their physiological signals. And the researchers found that selections with crescendos, especially with a series of them, like, for example, Queen Bohemian Rhapsody is like a great example of that where it's constant. It led to constriction of blood vessels and increases in blood pressure, heart rate, and respiration. And then these measures decreased during decrescendos and those silent periods. And the team also found that like rich music phrases that were around 10 seconds long, like rhythms from like famous arias where it's a lot of like, ah, like where it's very full with changing sounds, caused heart rate and other parts of the cardiovascular system to synchronize with the music. It would start to match it and try to
Oh,
like catch
wow.
up to the beat, which I thought was so interesting. So both groups were experiencing this, and like some were trained musicians and some were not, just to remind you. And the musicians did show a stronger response as far as like catching up with the rhythm, which makes sense. But it was still happening in a good amount of the like absolutely no musical training group, which
Yeah.
says something for sure. So Bernardi says, like the leader of this study says, that the music effects go beyond a patient's head. Like we've always thought it was mental, emotional, just like how we are relating to it. But there are absolutely cardiovascular changes that are purely a physical response to the way that the music is changing. And the study can also suggest that um, the opposite could be possible. Like there could be a boost in mood that is pleasurable, and like you get those like full body chills, but like also the full body chills could be a just purely physical reaction, and that could potentially be negative. All of these things are popping up that are like, oh, it's not just feelings that you had about it, basically, is what the study reveals. Like your goosebumps could be because you're having a feeling about it, but if you ever get goosebumps from music and don't fully understand why, it could be your body responding to something that we don't fully even know about yet. So this was like an initial study with only 24 volunteers, as I said, just meaning that like now they are getting bigger groups, they are getting people from obviously way different types of groups as well, and different musical training, so they can do like a very full immersive study into this, into every like walk of life. But the Institute for Music and Neurological Function in New York City has now grabbed onto this, and they have started to use like evidence from the same study as like practice in their own clinics, and just talking about that, like when the music changes, it is a totally subconscious thing that our body is doing, and they are showing that their patients are responding to it in like weird respiratory ways that nobody was ready for. So it's already
Wow.
starting to be like lightly trickled into places now. It started in Italy, now coming over to the States. And I'm excited to see where this goes. It's another one of those things, we do this a lot on the show, where it's like, here's the
Early
early
stage
release
of
of these studies,
tests.
and we just hope to see more about it. But I just thought that was like so crazy that music is even more important than we thought.
It is so crazy. And you know what I thought of, when I said like it's like the oldest form of art. I you think about like primitive human beings and like what is like the first instrument? It was a drum
Mm-hmm. And
and
a beat.
a beat. And you have to assume that they were first using it not for music but to replicate sounds that they had already heard. They heard heartbeats.
Mm-hmm.
You put your head up against
Mm-hmm.
someone's chest, you can hear their heart. You plug your ears, you can hear the beating in your ears. So I guarantee they were replicating the sounds that they were already hearing within
That
themselves.
were around them.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So
Which I just love that.
makes
Like it's
sense.
like this innate ability where we're trying to match up with that. And yeah, that's why it's so cool. And there was one last thing that I forgot to include, which is even like this just adds to the point even more. There was a study, and this was actually like there was a whole documentary about this on PBS that I like I totally missed, and now I'm like, okay, on my list to watch. But there was a documentary called The Music Instinct, Science and Song, which like I just love anything that is connecting science and music. But it was featuring an array of musicians, including jazz, pop, and rap, and how they affect human mind and body. And one of the main points they made was that a developing fetus is already equipped with the ability to distinguish changes in sound patterns, and presumably, this is like an instinct that humans have developed over time in order to interpret and learn from the world around them.
Mhm.
It's like, again, music is like the first thing, beats, rhythm is the first thing that they can distinguish changes in. But it has been found that like even a fetus is doing that. And like, so music, like the rhythm has been inside us all along, but it can like actually affect our whole life. It can affect our heart
I
health.
believe
Like
it.
that is how much it's built into us.
When I hear jazz, my anxiety spikes so much. I can't handle it. I physically
I
cannot
thought
handle
you were
it.
going to say something so
No,
sweet
it's not
about
like
jazz,
when
and
I hear
no, I
jazz.
love
No,
that it
it
went the other
fucking
way.
drives me insane. I legitimately
That
had
was
to
better.
walk away from Whiplash and like go in the other because there's no pattern really. And and I know this is like a running thing where it's like it sounds like noise to me, but like it's literal
Hmm.
noise to me and it's so all over the place.
Overstimulating? Do you think it's too like
It's just there's like no I mean, there's no rhyme or reason to it in my like I can't handle it. I hate jazz. I hate jazz.
it
And
makes
for so
total
many years people are
sense?
like, "Well, you just haven't heard." And it's like, "No, bitch. I've listened to enough jazz to
No.
tell you that I fucking hate
She's
it."
having a physical
I
reaction
need
to it. It's
Xanax
science.
when I hear
It's
jazz.
science. Because it's overwhelming. Because your body is trying to match the like rhythm and find reason to it, and it's just going
And my
and
body's
you're
like,
like, no.
absolutely not. I
I'm
gotta
like, I'm out.
go. That's so
I'm
cool,
out.
though. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, they're testing it and they're like finding these things. But like when you tell me that, it's like, yeah, duh. Like, of course our body has a reaction to it. But then, like,
I
but it is
know.
cool to like know that, like, no, you can measure it.
You can actually measure it. Yeah, because I did think the same, to be honest. I almost didn't bring this story. Like I added it when we were gonna record before. I added it very last minute because I was like, does this seem like a yeah, duh story? But I was like, no, because I do think like we attach so much of it to just like
The
us and
emotion.
like, well, yeah,
Yeah.
of course I like connect to music and can do this, but it's like, no, it's a natural, like our body just responds totally on its
Well, and
own.
animals too. There are cows who
I
like,
know.
you play classical music for your horses and cows, and it's good for their well-being.
And it
And my cats
changes
like
them. I
music.
know. I think I brought this up like on the memory episode as well, but like for children on the spectrum, a lot of like I teach a
Yes.
lot of kids with special needs in general, but a lot who are on the spectrum, they won't respond to any spoken language, but if you sing or if you just give them music of any kind, they're
Yeah.
immediately like focused, listening. What are you trying to tell me? And they could respond only with their body, or maybe they'll respond to you in song, or they'll respond to you in action if you ask them to do something. And it's like they didn't connect
Yeah.
until there was music. And I'm like,
It's
it's
so
just so
cool. I
cool.
love it.